welcome to Eden Town Hall number 35. This is Sunday, January 29th, and I'm here with Lenny, CAC, Chris, and Eric. We've been chatting for about 20 minutes or so. We've been talking about some exciting topics, and we figured we'd start recording and kind of play it by ear. Lots of cool things that have been in the air in the Eden community. We're talking a little about why CAC wrote an inspiring message about why he joined Eden and shared some thoughts, and then I had a bit of remorse that it wasn't recorded, so hopefully CAC will reiterate some of that, and Lenny also shared some great thoughts. Chris is working on a dGov organization, kind of a fork of Eden that optimizes Eden for decentralized governance and many other helpful benefits. So he's still working on the white paper there, but maybe he can share a little bit about that. He also said how that relates to the why. Eric has been starting an art fractal for the past few weeks and talking about the challenges and fun experiences of getting people who aren't so familiar with Zoom and blockchain consensus games to learn. I've been participating in those as well. We've also been talking about music, some Eden musical songs and metaverse concerts and games and all sorts of recent news with Eden Fractal and bylaw discussion and so forth. So anyway, I just figured I'd give a little summary of some topics that could be on the agenda. Last week, we had a pretty structured meeting with a pretty formal agenda. We'll work on that more in the future, but for here, it's kind of just more open floor with some potential topics. Also open if anybody has anything else on their mind. I'll just say hello first and open it up. Is there anything that anybody would like to say first, or any topic that anybody would like to discuss first? And thank you all for joining. Welcome.
I'm curious what Eric was talking about a moment ago in terms of joining younger folks and older folks together on Zoom and such. What was the context of that?
Well, I'm bringing together volunteers, and so you have to realize in an organization like art, who likes art? Young people like art, middle-aged people. Take all the different groups, whether you're talking, Gen X, Y, Z, millennials, the Ys, even up to the silent generation. So you've got all ends of the perspective and of the spectrum in there. And when you look at old people in the areas of the silent generation, which is the official name, if you look at people that divide people into groups, part of you say, why should you move to the internet? And there's like two forces in there. One force is, well, I haven't needed it before. Why would I need it now? And the other one, well, if I go in there, the world will end because it's dangerous. So the two things you have to talk about is how do you move people into moving past the status quo? And the other thing is, how do you overcome fear? So in the older generation, that's important. You go all the way, the youngest generation, you can think involved in that, and they're the opposite. They're like, oh yeah, no fear. Why not use the internet? That's not change for them. And so when you're talking about the same thing to a group of people, you have to look in and say, well, how do you overcome this idea that there's a reason to use it, there's a benefit to that? And the second thing is, how do you overcome that fear? And when you look at how do you, so if you look at most people in the silent generation, of the people who have used the technology, they, over 75% say, ooh, I get knowledge from it. There's benefits that I get from using it. But their ability to use it depends on what training they have, what technical background, but it also depends on demographics, finance, even their financial status. But the real key is you really have to show the meaning of why this is doing and give them really good experience. Overcome fear. You've got negative information, negative experiences, which give you negative thoughts, which make them change their behavior, which means so there's a vicious cycle, and interrupting that with good experiences is critical. So we could talk for an hour just about what we've learned in that. But the bottom line is giving people experience. They're really getting into Zoom. Dan helped us, and that really helped a lot too. So now they're getting used to Zoom, and they really like it. But you have to create. So that's the older side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me. No, that helps a lot.
Yeah, there's more we could talk about that all, but you have to take that in consideration when you're trying to get people to change into something new. You know, where they are, this idea that only 3% of people will do stuff because it's new, only about 13% will use something new if they see a specific advantage that's clear to them. Only about a third of people will do something, but they don't want to, once it's in there, but they don't want to take any risk. Once risk has been, it's pretty normal. And then a third about it will only use it when they have to. You have to build it into what they're doing or they won't do it. And about at the back end, you know, there's a group of people that will never do something new. They'll fight it. You know, they're really bad. So you have to figure out how to move people on those parts. And then the other thing is, how do you overcome fear? The young side of the equation is their communication. They really want to know up front why. Let's get to the point. Why are we doing this? What's the impact? I'm excited. And sometimes other generations aren't quite so comfortable digging into. Why are you asking me? That's a pretty direct question. You know, where's the chit chat and the social norming part of that? So as we start to mix these young people, they're very great and they're excited, but they want to know where we being very clear on where we're going, what I'm getting out of this, why. And sometimes the older generations can look at that as disrespectful, you know, especially if you grow up where, well, my boss told me to do something, so why do you do it? Because my boss said so. The younger generations are, yeah, that's not good enough. You tell me to do something, why? So that's why controlling that experience, things that we're learning here, bringing people to breakout rooms, giving them limited time, focusing their discussion creates a really safe environment, which we're learning works really good with young and old people, mixing them together. But the framing of that is critical. Why are we doing that? The framing when you're explaining to people what we, you know, the first 10 minutes, we found that that's pretty critical to get people on the right track.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I guess the big kind of obvious thing for me is just that question of the why and then what's the benefit, because change is hard. Like, I think probably one of the reasons why people avoid change so much is just because it's difficult, and status quo and comfort zones are what they are, and those are cozy. And so you need to put a pretty good compelling, well, here's why you want to go through this challenge of change, because there's a clear and a very attainable objective and a benefit to yourself for going through the trouble.
Well, the first thing I did was talk to them in depth, did a wide survey and collected all the information, finally repeat it back, because they couldn't even say, why are we doing this? It would start out with, well, we like art and we have a gallery. Okay, so what are you doing? Well, you know, we're helping. We like art. Yeah, but what's the purpose? What's this all about? And I think being able to brand that and frame that makes it so people know what they're trying to do. So I gave them a clear model on, here's what we're trying to do, here's how we get there, and I'm not telling you to do that. You told me, I just compiled it together. And that seems to be the most important thing, because it puts off, oh, here's why I'm here, here's what I can do, and oh, here's all the roles that I could do to get there. I could do this, or I could do that, or this is something. So that seems to work really well in bringing the full spectrum together. Is, oh, I get why we're here. So it explains the why to the young people, but it also explains the what and the how to the other people.
So Awesome. Thank you very much, Eric and Chris, for that dialogue. Really interesting. I think I don't know if Chris has further comments, but I'd be interested to hear it, of course. But I think one thing that might be helpful for the general audience who's watching this video is zooming out a little bit and maybe explaining what we're talking about, because I introduced it briefly with the art fractal in the beginning, but we've never really formally introduced it before. So I've been pulling up some windows that I can show on the screen about the art fractal and also about Fallbrook. If you'd like me to share it, Eric, if you'd like me to show the audience, would you like to introduce it, or would you like me to
Sure.
introduce it?
And to keep in mind, the purpose is, it's kind of like Steve Jobs said, artists deliver. And if you consider Eden art, you got to move it to somewhere to show it works. So some of us are very passionate about getting the lessons learned that we're all learning as quickly as possible by rolling out to different people that don't have this technical background. They don't have the same passion that we do. So it'll work for us just because we're passionate. But if you take the passion out of governance in Eden and put the passion on somebody trying to do something, start a business, promote art, we're using this to support cancer research. So that's the real focus on that, is how do we find groups that we can use as case studies that the stuff we're learning in Eden Fractal actually works. And so that's the core of what we're doing. And we just picked art. We pick nonprofits because they're one, it's a harder case, but they're more open to doing things. Hey, we have volunteers. How do we do this? The other reason we picked art is because it's easier to then branch into education and elder care and government. And so it's very easy to connect art with all elements of the community, real estate. And so that's our real goal, is how can we start with a group to get lessons learned, and most importantly, a case study to prove the stuff we're doing works, and also give feedback to that. So it's really just a laboratory to show everything we're learning works and give feedback on it. But also the most important thing is to write it up and get case studies so we get credibility. Remember that early majority we talked, they don't want to do it till, how do I know this works? And the best way to say it, well, look at all these places it works. Well, now we don't really have any. If we were to do sell a new software that does AI-based enterprise resource, ERP or anything, if we had that system and we said, well, it works for us, yeah, it works for your company, that's not very good credibility. They want to know who you're using this with. So that's the idea. Hopefully I explained that okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Eric. That's very insightful. I have a lot of thoughts to share with this too. I'm super excited, and I've expressed many times how much I appreciate you pioneering this art fractal and all the other work that you're doing, and then also sharing the lessons and learnings from and at Eden Fractal as well. If Lenny or Chris or CAC have any questions about this, then feel free to jump in. If not at the moment, then I'll also share a couple of my thoughts. So a couple of things maybe Eric mentioned, or maybe he didn't mention, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to highlight. So Eric's been planning the art fractal for a while, and it's with a community organization that has been around for quite a while, I think, called Fallbrook Art Association. It's a community that's been around for much longer than just the past few months, right, Eric?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and it even takes its model from another art association, even older. So a group of people were part of one and said, well, we need to expand this model to others. So they took a successful model and used it. So yeah, it's been around a while.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you for the clarification. So yeah, we've had these first couple meetings. I'll actually share my screen if that is all right with everybody, to just show everybody what I'm talking about here. And feel free to jump in, Eric, if there's anything that I'm missing, or if you want to explain it better, anything like that. But right now it's on gofractally.com, the site that Josh was set up. I think you also have it in other places as well. But there's an art fractal that you've been hosting for the past 3 weeks or past 4 weeks now, I think. And there's a little bit of a description here about how it's a weekly volunteer forum to accelerate the growth of amateurs to well-known, well-paid artists through the shared knowledge and shared experience, and collaborate with other communities to make the world better through art. So that's really, really exciting. So far, I've been to the first couple meetings, and there was probably 10 to 15 artists who were older, probably in their 50s or 60s or so, and not super familiar with Zoom, and certainly not very familiar with EOS or Antelope blockchains or anything like that. But they're excited about making art, and I love that. I'm an artist myself too, and I love making the world better through art. I'm very aligned with the vision, and that's also one of the things that really excites me about these fractal consensus games and these fractal processes and what we do with Eden and so forth. And it's really cool to see how, like you're saying, this is using the lessons that we're learning in Eden, but it's using with the community that doesn't know much about Eden or EOS. And it's one of the first times that that's happening. It also happened a bit with Ronnie's Pizza, which Eric Binder has been implementing fractal process for a bit. And Spanish Fractal and several other places are adopting it, but it's really cool to see this kind of new community using it that's not familiar with it and enjoying it, still learning a lot about it. We featured a little bit of it. Eric provided more details about this during the 30-second Eden Fractal meeting, which there's some show notes here, edenfractal.com/32, where you can see timestamps of when Eric was discussing it. If you search for Eric, you can see right at 4:50, he discusses it in more details here and several other places throughout. So lots of resources where you can learn more. And I also put together a little place here about the art fractal, just kind of writing it up real quickly about what we're talking about here and including the logo as well to help curate it. But I'm looking forward to curate this much better in the future. There's also the Fallbrook Art Association website, which I'm just checking out for the first time here, but some lovely art and lots of information about it as well. If there's anything you want me to include or not include, feel free to let me know, Eric, but I'm just, I think this might be helpful to show.
And that I'd mentioned that one of the outcomes of this was that they needed to improve their website. So the website you're looking at is vastly different than what they had before, and they've put in a program to improve this website even more.
Cool, sounds great. Yeah, I'm looking at the welcome message right now. It's a nonprofit that believes in the power of art to beautify, uplift, and build better communities. Our mission is to provide an environment for visual artists of all abilities and backgrounds to grow, connect, and thrive. So that's an amazing mission statement. I love to see the specificity as well. We've talked a lot about mission statements, and that's really cool. It's one of the powers of these Eden processes that enable communities to do things like improve their websites to be able to better accomplish their mission and better share their art and help beautify the world and build better communities and so forth. So that's really cool and neat to hear. There's a lot of people who can explore here with the gallery and the meetings, the events and memberships and so forth. So I'm very much looking forward to learning more about the Fallbrook Art Association and working more with this community, as well as many other communities that they might also help inspire to really use these tools and help grow things that are awesome, that people love, art and games and all sorts of fun things. We talk about games as well too. And of course, these are using processes from Fractally and Eden Fractal and Eden on EOS. And then also, I know you're also doing some collaborations with some nonprofits you mentioned too, like
so there's kind of three things that have come, maybe four things that have already come out of these meetings. The first was the need to communicate better, to tell our story, to not just have a gallery. So the website is part of that. There's some beautification efforts, like there's some transformers outside the building, they're painting them now to attract people and signage. So that was one thing, communication. The other one was bringing in the youth people, so a youth, younger. So we've started talking with the local high school. So it just turned out the timing was good because the local high school is redoing their whole video space. So we're talking with them. My hope is to bring Dan in with his distributed autonomous media studio to help tell their story. And the third thing you talked about was a collaboration to say, well, let's join forces with other communities. So we've joined forces with Michelle's Place, which believes that nobody should, anybody impacted with cancer should have an experienced team and free resources to walk that path with them to the best possible outcome. And so we're actually going to their place February 1st for a first meeting. And on February 10th, we're introducing artists and the Michelle's community. And the art fractal is going to capture the whole story of cancer, hope, support, pain, worry, all that through art. And then in April, we are going to sell that art, have a kickoff and sell it for a month, and also sell it on t-shirts. So I've been creating a t-shirt store for them, a funding page actually, where you can buy a t-shirt, gift a t-shirt, or just donate money, or combination of all that. So those are three things that we've come out. So the idea is, I was given the task from the Fallbrook Art Association, how do you grow and get more members? And I said, what's their marketing budget? And they said $0. I said, okay, you can either spend a lot of time building an audience through stories telling, or you can share an audience with somebody else that's non-competitive. And that was the strategy that we did. So Michelle's Place, loves talking about Fallbrook art, and art loves talking about Michelle's Place. And it's going to the point where they're starting to talk art therapy programs and how can art help them market and help their team. So those are come out of this so far.
Yeah, that's amazing. We've talked about this a lot in the during some of the Alien Worlds fractal meetings and after the Eden fractal meetings and messages and so forth too. So I've seen you've written some quite comprehensive like action plans and diagram flows and so forth to organize this well. I'm also looking at the Michelle's Place website too. As you're saying, no one should face cancer alone, and love to see the art there. And I love to see this collaboration between artists and people who are aiming to help people just improve their life in general, dealing with diseases, or also setting an example for all kinds of nonprofits, because there's so many great causes out there that these processes for Eden can help, create public goods, help empower communities and so forth. So really cool to see. I won't show too much, but I know that you had like the action plan too you sent me. I don't know if you want to share that publicly, but there's like 15 pages here just to give a little bit of a sense of what's going on here as well. And these are coming up pretty soon. Yeah, so should I go through any of this, Eric, or is this still should be private?
Yeah, don't share too much of that.
Okay, I just shared the first
It's not that
line or two.
it's not I'm talking about it. It's that there's more people than I involved in it, and I just want to make sure there. I'm very transparent, so I can tell you about it right now. What's in there, and the action plans in there. But from their point of view, I want to make sure, because we need to make sure the leadership of both organizations are respected too. But here's the thing: the key is that it turns out artists might like donating their time and be volunteering for helping people impacted by cancer. And it turns out that some of the people impacted with cancer might like to be artists, art therapy, and that helps. We've talked to several of them already. So there's nothing that prevents somebody being a member of both. So those are the kind of things we're talking about. And we've been talking about plans to integrate with the Realtors Association and the Chamber. And like I said, we've already done the high school. So, I'm not looking at this as let's help one organization. I'm looking at this as how do we create models which spread this wide without having to do a huge upfront education campaign on what is a blockchain, what is governance, because that is a long, having done marketing for decades, that is a long education cycle to get people ready, to get people aware. So the other thing is like we said, just integrate it into their lives. So one of the big things is I only call this the Fallbrook Volunteer Weekly Forum. That's all they know. They show up and it's Zoom. Well, that's kind of weird, but it's just like talking. It's just like having a meeting. So there's a concept that came from design called Maya, which stands for most advanced yet acceptable. And it turns out that when you're creating new things, whether it's marketing or design, people want to feel that what you're doing is familiar but better. So that's the thing. We want to be familiar, but we want it to be better. So if it's better but not unfamiliar, people push back. On the other hand, if it's familiar but not better, people get bored, which is why when you take things that we've been using or products that we've had for years and years and years, new, improved, now with, so everybody has to convince you that something that's familiar is actually better. And on the other hand, we have to convince people that what's better is in some way familiar. Example of that is, you come out with electric cars and we could totally change the dashboards and the controls to make it better, but we wouldn't do that. Why? Because they're not familiar with that. They're more familiar. So an electric car, as much as possible, looks like every other car we've ever driven, even to the, oh yeah, it's just like the gas can. Even the gas thing looks like that. Oh, it's almost like you're going to the pump, putting in gas, even though the brakes can be kind of weird sometimes. You might get used to that, but the brakes, you try and make it as familiar as possible. So when we roll out this idea of Eden governance, what's that? That's weird. All right, I'm 10. But if you just say, oh, we've got some great ways for groups to connect and make that, optimize, make decisions better. And so that's how I've approached talking with these people. The president, I've lifted the covers and gone heavily into Fibonacci sequences. And so the president of the organization is with me, but we've agreed, yeah, that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the goals of the organization, how we get there, and how this is just an improved way of for groups to communicate and make reach decisions together.
Yeah, perfect. I completely agree. And I think that's really, really valuable and helpful. You have to synthesize this in a way and simplify it in a way that it's really helpful for communities and setting the example, while helping these amazing communities with Michelle's Place and Fallbrook. And the people there are awesome from everything I've seen from them so far. So really excited to help them. And then, as you said, can serve as a template or an example to help inspire many more communities. And so many, I think all communities can benefit from these processes, especially when we get them more what we find with better tools, or just tools that are a bit easier to use, and then also explain in the right way and market it in such a way that, like you said, it's familiar but better. It's something that's easy for people to understand, and it's simple and it's fun and it's enjoyable. It was quite an experience.
It's just a great experience where, we're focusing on two things: shared experiences that are fun, spontaneous, cool, and shared knowledge. That's really what we're focusing on, those two things, is from their point of view. And so as we start investigating these great tools that Tadas and Vlad and people are rolling out, we look at them with an eye of, okay, how are the young people all the way through the old people going to react with those, and how do we sell those?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an incredible learning experience too. I mean, for myself personally, working with people who, aren't very familiar with the games and aren't very familiar with how it works and aren't very familiar with Zoom in the first place, but are like really nice people and really committed to helping each other with art. It's cool to see how they're learning about these tools. As you mentioned, they had some difficulties and learning experience learning Zoom. So there's quite a learning curve, but we simplify it as much as possible.
And here's the big thing in running these events, because I find, there's an argument we were having this week. Do you get everything for a party and plan a party, or do you plan a party, then bring everybody on board? And some people are very much, well, I don't know, we're not ready yet. Not everything is there. We don't know where we're going. And I talk to them about that EDS commercial. If you've never seen it on YouTube, it basically says, we build planes in the air. I highly recommend anybody watch that because it's just enjoyable. It's not very long. It's a commercial. EDS, building planes in the air. You can find it there. And basically, you know, it shows a bunch of people getting on an airplane and it's taken off, and the whole time people are putting in new seats and building stuff. Yeah, that's what we do, build planes in the air. So there's this idea of, well, do you have to know where you're going to start a journey? You know, do you have to have everything decided? Well, you probably have to have some basics, like do you have a basic set of clothes or some basic money, but you don't really have to have everything planned. And some people don't feel comfortable going on that journey without a detailed itinerary with resources like that. Yeah, but there's no way we can know. We're going on a journey. It's not like we can say that Christopher or Lenny told us about a great trip they had and we're just going to copy it. Nobody's gone on this trip before. So when you're going on a trip before, you don't have to know everything. You have to know enough, and that's the balance. And so I told one of the members there that what I liked best about her was she thinks so differently than me, and she's very much that way. And so the key is, you know, I say, and create a party first and say, what do we need to get there? Then what can we get? How far can we get? You know, if we have a party and we want a band, then we say, we want a band, we want this. And you go out there and it turns out that, okay, we're going to have a DJ. That's okay. It's still a successful party. It just means you have to think about what you want and say, how far can I get with what I have, and go there. And with that in mind, even though I could do so much of this stuff, one, I don't have a lot of time because I'm still finishing up my doctoral classes, one left, but I also don't want it to depend on me. So that's why I'm looking forward to Dan being able to help them learn how to do what he does. So with that in mind, I moved slower than I could have moved. And an example of that is we had a Fallbrook Art Association member host her first Zoom meeting. So we actually had, week before last, we had them host the meeting. And that was pretty interesting for somebody who'd really never been on Zoom before, to get up to speed where they could host their own meeting, including, you know, starting and running breakout rooms. So that's something else to consider when you start this with a new team, is how do you make it about them?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to be able to cater it so any community or any people who are interested in rallying around a common cause can pick up these tools and be able to orient it for their purpose. They might not care about say more equal animals necessarily, or democracy and big things like that. They might just want to make better art and make a better website to help promote their gallery and help local nonprofits and so forth. Everybody has different goals and so forth, and so it's very important that we're being able to provide that in very accessible ways.
Yes, some will, after they get, oh, this is cool, how do we do better? I remember when I was in software sales once, I sold somebody a button for, I don't know, 15K or something like that. They loved it. They opened up their computer, they hit this button, it did this thing that they've been wanting to do for years. And then I came back and said, they gave another price. I said, would you like a solution for that? As another button? I said, yeah. And they said, what's that button cost? And I went, 8K. They went, wow. And they were really happy with that. And they came up with another, said, would you like that to solve? And they said, sure. And they looked at me, another button. Yeah, what's this cost? And I'm like, oh, you know, that's like 5K. They go, how come the price keeps dropping? And I said, well, you really invested in a whole background that's doing this stuff for you. Would you like to learn more? And like, yeah. Then they eventually paid 50K to get that, and they started digging into it. So if I'd start with, would you like a really versatile platform that does all this stuff and can do this, and let's talk about, you know, server-based stuff, and they would have just looked at me and said, yeah, we're not interested. So I think equal animals and all that stuff is a really important part that we need to get ready for the foundations to teach. But I don't think that's where you start with groups like this. I think some people are going to be interested, and I think it's important, but that's not that's not the first step of the funnel. That's like asking somebody instead, would you like to go out and have coffee, to would you like to marry me? You know,
Right.
There's steps.
Yes. There are certainly steps, and I would not recommend people asking people to marry him after the first time coffee. People could do dates or something in between to build up to it. And similarly, in our situation too, you got to go where people are. You got to go what people are inspired about. And these games and these tools that we're using can help people learn about the importance of foundations of them and how it can help the world as a whole and help democracy and help all these different things. But first and foremost, people have goals, local goals, and things that excite them immediately. And so it's best to help them accomplish their goals, help them accomplish what excites them the most in the near term. It reminds me a little bit of a great analogy or kind of a lesson from Seth Godin, who's a great marketer, and he's talking about how people don't necessarily want, like the screws and the piece of wood and so forth. They just want the shelf, like they just want the final product that's going to solve their problem, and everything else that's not helping them solve that immediate problem can be kind of a distraction. And those other things that might be really helpful in the future are great to share at the right time. But when they want the shelf built or they want to help their local community, whatever, then we should aim to help those communities and help those people accomplish their goals as much as possible. So a couple of things here. First off, I want to thank you very much, Eric, for sharing all this with us. I know before we started recording, you said you were a bit busy doing a couple of things, so I don't want to take up too much of your time and ask you too much of your questions, but I really appreciate you sharing an overview with us, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to this more in the future.
I'm actually writing up what I'm doing and turning it into a part of it I have to submit to my class. So I made this what we're doing my coursework. So I'm turning that in tonight.
Cool.
So there's a lot more in that. And that's why I've been doing this analysis of elder people and all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of the stuff I'm doing. There's a lot of research and hidden stuff. It's not secret. It's just like you said, you don't approach people with that. So.
Well, yeah, sounds good. And that's another thing that maybe should be mentioned. I believe that you're working on a dissertation, which is a pretty long, comprehensive document, which I've read some of it, that's explaining benefits of using this fractal process and this Eden process to help communities, and kind of using the art fractal and so forth as like clearly stating it as a case study for how it can help, and then also aiming to share this with academics too at the university system to help academics understand this and do more research on these as well, right?
Yeah, so what you saw was a draft of just part of the prospectus.
Oh, so I just read it. I just read a little dot of it.
You just read it's much bigger now.
Okay, cool.
You just read part of the prospectus on why the dissertation should go in there. So I should be able to start actually starting the real final copy of the prospectus in March or April.
Okay, awesome. Sounds great, Eric. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that dissertation, and it sounds very comprehensive and helpful. And I imagine it will be super helpful to help educate and help inspire the academic community as well with these ideas and tools and consensus games.
Well, the good thing is involving the academic is it helps with credibility for ETH.
Yep, helps with credibility, and also having more smart people looking at it and thinking about it too. That's also a big benefit as well.
And I also had discussions with the university about adding that academic cred to the Center for Governance, which we're doing for Alien Worlds. And of course, we're already have plans talking about integrating the art fractal with Alien Worlds.
Yeah, you're really doing a lot, Eric. It's tough to summarize and remember all these things. For anybody who's not familiar, Eric and myself and Lenny and several other people have been meeting at the Alien Worlds fractal meeting that Dwayne hosts and the Crown DAC community hosts every Thursday at 16 UTC, and discussing all these different things. Eric and myself and Dwayne and several other people, mostly led by Eric, have been pioneering the Center for Governance, where there's a website coming out soon, and that's aiming to integrate with Alien Worlds plans and so forth. I don't know if we'd like to go into this. I'd be happy if you'd like to share anything about Eric. Also, I want to welcome Patrick too. Patrick just joined. We can talk about the recent Eden Fractal Brainstorming session and a couple other things before. I also mentioned some other topics at the top of the recording, at the top of the episode that we haven't quite gotten to, so we can get to those at some point soon if we would like. Also, if Lenny, Chris, CC, Patrick have any questions or thoughts for Eric, then that would be appreciated and cool to hear. I suppose I'll leave it open for a moment if anyone wants to chime in, or if Eric, if you have more time, if you want to explain the connection between the Center for Governance and Fractal and so forth, then that would be cool too.
Well, we of course, our focus is on how do we bring the value of Eden to other organizations. And so we looked at the real world, but we realized, the metaversal world is a great experiment too, because you can do things and fix them and, not with physical places stuff. So if we look at the Alien Worlds communities, is they just gave control of their planets in the metaverse to the citizens of the planets. And so Dwayne and I talked to people that were running it for planetary custodian offices and were planetary custodians. And, one of the real feedbacks we got is, yeah, we don't know what we're doing. We don't even know what governance is and what it means. What is governance? What makes it good? How do you do it? And so we asked them what they wanted. And so we set up the Center for Education within there. We set up offices where people meet and points where people can collaborate with their citizens and the custodians, and that we set up communication. That was something they asked for, and put Dan as director of that. They wanted development, data, experience. So there's a lot of things they asked for. So we wrote up that framework, and we applied for a grant within Alien Worlds to say, what if we could flesh this out and then hopefully get operating costs so we can pay people to go do things. Of course, it'll be in the planetary currency or Trillium digital currency, but the idea is, can we run that? So that's been, the proposal's been submitted to develop this and put it in a website that Dan's helping me work on. But the main idea is, how do you make it easy to connect, people running for office, candidates, custodians, and citizens? How do they understand each other? How do they get things done? And how do you reach decisions and build consensus together?
Yeah, thanks for the explanation and the overview, Eric. And that is really important questions, of course, and really important ideas to focus on that the world very much needs and our communities need with Alien Worlds and so forth. So it's great to see the collaboration here. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward at some point when the website's more developed. It'd be cool to do maybe a more full and proper walkthrough where we can start from the beginning and explain it and help promote it to everybody. That might be a cool idea. Another thing I'll add on too, just that is sort of connected to this too, is that you've been doing a lot of podcasts with the World Talent Economy Forum and Dr. Sharif, and also I think you raised funding for a conference coming up that they're holding too. I can perhaps share the screen there, but I don't know if we want to get into it, but I figured that's maybe something worth mentioning too, because that's also a big facet of the project where you've been kind of doing some outreach with a lot of different communities around the world who are who are associated with World Talent Economic Forum.
A real passion for developing communities, communities that are, some of them are just getting or don't even have internet, but how do they take advantage of fractal governance and metaversal? And so one of the offices we've created is for the World Talent Economy Forum. And the World Talent Economy Forum is funding the Nikola Tesla conference in India. And so we talked, and was able to get a sponsor to provide some funding for, hotel and travel to some people. So if you like that and want to go, let me know. And you can find me, at my last name on Telegram, for example. And I will be glad to forward it to the people running the conference.
Cool. Sounds great. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, thank you for raising funding for
And
that.
the other thing is, for anybody who wants to we do live streaming on Mondays on that. So anybody who has a topic, wants to put a panel together and wants an audience that, streams over Facebook, YouTube, Roku. Glad to set up those topics. And if you want to speak, and if you just want to be a speaker, let me know too, and I'll invite you to be on panels.
Yeah, for sure. I participated in a bunch of these, or several of these meetings that we've had, the World Talent Economic Forum, and I recommend people checking them out. They're a great place to speak with a lot of great thinkers. I'll share my screen too. That conference is in India, by the way. So I was thinking about reaching out to Jorn or somebody who's over there who can maybe attend. I'll briefly show the screen as well. So this is the World Talent Economy Forum, and there's a playlist on YouTube or actually a channel on YouTube where they do streams hosted by Dr. Sharif very often. Of course, there's also alienworlds.io where you can learn many of the integrations of Alien Worlds, although it's a very big ecosystem. So there's much more we can go into there, but that's kind of related to a lot of these different things too. And great to see all the connections between Alien Worlds and Eden and all the pioneering work you've been doing, Eric. And yeah, these live videos, for the World Talent Economic Forum, and they stream all over the world. I know there's a big audience in, I think he said, Malaysia and so forth, and they're quite good discussions. This is one that I joined last month where you're talking about building the Metaverse Welcome Center. We're also with Jason, who participates a lot in the fractal meetings and Alien Worlds community and so forth, as well as a bunch of other great thinkers too. So really cool experience to hear from everybody, and encourage everybody to join. While I'm sharing my screen too, maybe I'll show a couple of things that you're talking about just briefly. I mean, first, there's also the World Talent Economy Forum where people can find the website and also the event and so forth. They're doing a lot of cool things to help people in general. They have a very wide scope of cool things that they're doing, so I won't go into too much, but just figured I'd show you briefly. Also, something I brought up before was just I've been working with Vlad on a welcome material for Eden Fractal. There's something I talked with Waxa as well on the recent Helios Twitter space with Chris. About having it's still an early draft right now, so it's pretty messy, but having basically a kind of bylaws or rules that make it very simple for people to learn how to play these games like Eden plus Fractal Agendas and FAQ and so forth. I'm also working on kind of guidelines for moderators so that basically we can essentially open source or share all these so everybody can just use these, adapt them for own purposes, and communities like Fallbrook Art Association or all these other organizations can just easily just kind of skip all the steps that we have of learning all these different things, and just get straight to making cool stuff. You also mentioned dams too. You're doing really cool work with the high school students, which is really exciting, and maybe inspiring them to help work with making cool videos and whatnot. I have this article at edencreators.com/dams, which I originally made for a video about the hackathon that Chris was hosting, actually, which is an awesome hackathon. So thanks to Chris. But yeah, dams are decentralized autonomous movie studios where we can learn more there. But I'm excited to collaborate more with you there too. I see Lenny has to jump off. But I'm glad you stayed here. I'm glad you had a good time here, Lenny, and have a great day. And then, yeah, you're mentioning rebuilding the airplane as we were going. I looked up that video, but I figured this was also appropriate to remind me something that Laura's working on about just a boat that we're trying to fix in the middle of it. And I certainly resonate with that. We're certainly doing that as well. And so this is something I've been curating for the mission of Eden as well. Perhaps it's a little bit of a distraction topics at this point, but I had them kind of in the queue, and I figured it might be helpful to share because you made a lot of great points there and wanted to add some of the visual elements to it. But yeah, I'm really excited about everything that you're doing, Eric. I think that the combination between the the podcast and talks that you're doing, and the event with the World Talent Economic Forum, as well as Fallbrook Art Association, the Art Fractal, and Michelle's Place, and the dissertation, and all these different things. I probably missed a couple of big things right here. Center for Governance. It's a really awesome synergy, and it's helping to bring these great tools and these great games and these great processes to people who are outside of the Eden or EOS community currently, but can benefit from these tools, and simplifying it and presenting it in a way that's really helpful and accessible for people who just want to get their thing done or just want to do it better and don't know everything else. And that's vitally important. So I don't know if you want to add anything more to that, Eric, but I just kind of wanted to give a little summary there and say thank you so much.
No, I feel like I've talked way too much.
Okay. Well, maybe that's my fault for asking you a bunch of questions. I know that you joined right before we started recording, and I mentioned maybe it'd be a good idea to start talking about it. But I figured we never talked about this on a full episode before, and we can kind of orient the episode around it. So it wasn't talking too much at all for me, and I'm very excited to hear more about it. Although I would be happy to hear if CAC or Chris or Patrick have any feedback or thoughts for Eric or myself about all of this cool stuff that Eric is doing, or anything you'd like to share. If not, we can also move on to some other topics as well. We've already been gone for an hour and 15 minutes, so I suppose we can wrap it up pretty soon, and that would probably be a good idea to respect everybody's time. But there are a couple other topics that I'd like to briefly get into that I can probably just go over in a few minutes. But first, before we move on, would anybody like to share any thoughts or questions or comments about the great work that Eric is doing? Or just welcome yourself. I know Patrick just joined for the first time, so if you want to say hi, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'll just briefly say I think it's great what Eric's doing. Keep it up. I think it's inspiring that you're trying to broach the divide and bring in new members to this type of community. So it's pretty exciting.
Thanks, Chris. I completely agree. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, we can. We'll have lots more to talk about, all the great work that Eric is doing, and we'll share updates here in the town hall and in various other forums coming up in the coming weeks and months as we make more progress on these initiatives. And I suppose now, so for one thing, I know Patrick messaged me about the Eden fractal brainstorming session. So I don't know if Patrick would like to introduce these at all, but well, we just had our 5th one a week and a half ago, where we discussed updating the Eden.fractal MSIG. And actually, no, we had our 4th one. We're having our 5th one. My apologies. And so that was a very fruitful and helpful discussion. We discussed it more at the most recent Eden Fractal meeting too. So we're going to be having the next one on the upcoming Tuesday, which I believe is the 1st. So we'll have to look at a calendar to see how many days are in the month. It might be the 31st. Yep, the 31st, January 31st at 16 UTC will be the 5th Eden Fractal brainstorming session, where we'll probably talk about the MSIG. We also have some other topics. I've also been curating a article about brainstorming. I've also been working with TAC and collaborating on this article as well, with some of the funds that I raised from Eden and Pamela to be able to help curate great articles. So I'll share that. I shared it last week, so I won't go over it again. And we've already been going for kind of a while, but basically edencurious.com/brainstorming has a bunch of topics that we might discuss in future ones. I'm going to be working to make this article better and better in the future. And you can also see all the previous brainstorming sessions there. And the next one is coming up on this Tuesday. Also, a big topic that we've been discussing is about the why of Eden 2. That's something that we discussed in the beginning of the episode. And Joshua and Patrick and Nathan have been doing great work to help lead that, as well as what we've been doing for the mission as well in Eden Fractal, with several proposals from Vlad and others. Yeah, so there's a bunch of other stuff we talked about too. Lenny's been doing great work with the recap, so thanks again, Lenny, and big shout out. Also, we talked about some fun stuff like games and music and metaverse concerts and bylaws and all the other different stuff. But we've been going for a while now, so I won't push any of that stuff too much. Perhaps we can do a fairly short meeting and wrap it up. But also happy to stick around if anybody would like to continue discussions or discuss anything else. I'm also looking forward once again to learning more about what Chris is working on with the dGov organization too. I mentioned that in the beginning, but hopefully this week, I think Chris will be releasing some sort of white paper or light paper with more details about the dGov organization as well, which it's kind of like Eden, is it's like a fork of Eden, but it introduces components of the Fractally process with weekly Fractally meetings, and it provides some more Sybil resistance and sock puppet resistance and other features that I think can be really helpful and really exciting. I don't know if you want to share a few words about that, Chris, or if anybody else wants to share anything else here. But basically, floor is open if anybody wants to share any thoughts here.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. That's what I'm trying to create a version of this fractal governance process that we're using in Eden, but recognizing that the application for governance is a little more demanding in terms of the potential attack vectors. So Sybil resistance, like you say, and more importantly, sock puppets, and the idea that currently we can have members join Eden and be essentially proxies of other members, and that's basically a Sybil attack or having sock puppets, and that doesn't work. If we want to get really serious about governance, and especially the idea of providing governance as a service and something that's more like an actual tool that other applications and dApps can leverage when they have dispute resolution problems, you can leverage this organization to be basically a dispute resolution service. But there's far more. There's MSIG as a service and Ricardian contract review services that can be tied into the dispute resolutions, especially if it's an Antelope or EOS.io based application that uses Ricardian contracts. That has never really been fully leveraged on EOS. It was a feature that was released when EOS first came out in 2018 that it had Ricardian contracts, but we've yet to really see the Ricardian contract aspect be fully leveraged broadly. So I think that's going to be one of the other big pieces that we can do with this organization. And we leverage the Fractally weekly meeting process to do all the great, like all the benefits that come from those weekly meetings are going to be absolutely leveraged here, except we're going to have a pretty clear and explicit purpose as to what we're going to be hopefully grading each other on for the previous week's efforts. So nothing as broad as providing value to EOS, because we know that just means too much. And it doesn't align individuals well enough to achieve more together. So we'll refine the mission of what we're trying to grade each other on. And I'm curious what you guys think about tweaking. So one of the things I recall that came up when Fractally was first released was the idea that it's really difficult to rank each other first to sixth. And we kind of like, is there really much value in ranking the sixth, fifth, and fourth ranked individuals? And I know one of the things I had heard someone suggest is, why not just rank the top 3, 1, 2, 3, and then just give the bottom 3 the same score? And also sometimes you don't end up with all 6 in a room. You might have 5 or even 4. So if you really focus on the top 3, you also kind of negate the downside of not having a full room, and just give the same score to the bottom cluster, and not single someone out as being the least contributing member of a group, because I think that's got a bit of a stigma associated with it. Any thoughts on that from the group? Because you guys have spent more time in those Fractally meetings than I have. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, thanks for explaining. That's a very interesting idea, Chris. Hadn't thought about that. Just to be clear, so you're suggesting that the ranking, rather than it being 1 through 6 and Fibonacci the whole way down in terms of how much respect or whatever people get, you're saying or suggesting that the 4, 5, and 6 would get level 4, 5, and 6 in different amounts, and then people who are level 1, 2, and 3 would receive all the same amount of respect or reputation or whatever you call it?
Yes. Using the numbering convention that you've suggested, that's the idea. I'm also going to suggest changing the way the numbering works, because my understanding of having 6 be the top and 1 be the bottom is that if you continue to other rounds, you would have then a 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th round or ranking. But in this dGov instantiation, there is going to be no second round. There's just 1 round. So I think in light of that, I never really quite could wrap my head around, like, first should be first, not the bottom. So I'm probably going to suggest switching that back around to what is more, just makes more sense. But anyway, to your point, yes, exactly. So the top ranked first, second, third individuals, they receive their proper Fibonacci distribution, and then the bottom cluster all receive the same score, the same amount of points.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I'm very interested to hear. Eric and Patrick and CAC have also participated in a lot of fractally style meetings too, so I'm interested to hear what they think. Of course, I'll share some thoughts. First off, I'll just say that I love what you're doing. I think I mentioned before, and I love that there's a clear purpose and you're integrating the fractally process. I think that's tremendously helpful. I'm also really excited about how this can combine with what Jesse's working on too. Jesse's also working on some sort of Eden fork specified for Sybil resistance, and he talks about how these can be really synergistic, combined with what you're doing here with dGov. So it's really exciting to see all the emerging variants of Eden coming out. I think we might be in for some sort of a Cambrian explosion, but like a fun one. And also, I'd recommend everybody check out the Helios Twitter Spaces every Friday at 17 UTC. Chris and Waxa host great calls, and we've discussed these a lot more in detail. You can also check out the recordings for more details about here, in addition to the upcoming light paper, and I think there's a video and so forth. Regarding the idea about the changing up how the ranking works and Fibonacci and so forth, I have several thoughts about it, and perhaps can take some time to think about it more deeply, but some thoughts that come to mind. One, I agree that the numbering convention is awkward. I don't know. I mean, I think it can work, and it's not like a huge awkward thing that's insurmountable. But the fact that it's 1 through 6, and 6 is the highest and 1's the lowest. If you did reorient that, so number 1 is the person who did the most or the best, that could be helpful, and I could see that. And then also the ideas about changing the amounts of rewards. I do think that there's a lot of value in the current system, in that one of the things that Dan Larimer explained is that there's always incentive to do more. Whether you're at level 1, you just came for the first time, or you don't have much time to participate, or much resources, or whatever it is. If you can just do a little bit more, then you could potentially become level 2, and you can get 50% more or 55% more or whatever. So I'm very interested in the idea of what you're suggesting. I think there could be a lot of variations. Something I think about a lot is in like biological terms or biomimetic terms. Like we're talking about making fractals, so to speak here, fractal communities. And I think about fractals in nature. There's not one type of tree, and there's not one type of plant. Certainly there's hundreds and millions of types of variations, and they all have different parameters and variables and so forth. So I think it could work, and I definitely think that it's a good idea to experiment with overall. But I do like the current system in that, like, there's always a bit more incentive to do a little bit more. And I don't know, like I'd wonder if you have 4, 5, and 6 all getting much more, like there is, kind of ratios. Like I wonder how much the people who get level 1, 2, and 3 in this current naming convention, like the bottom 3 rather, would get in relation to level 4 or level 3. Like, would they get something that's equivalent to what level 3 currently gets, or what level 1 currently gets? So I have a lot of questions about it. Curious about the experiment. I don't know if you want to share any thoughts here in response to that, Chris, or if we can go into more details about it another time, or if anybody else has any thoughts. But that's my thoughts for here so far.
Just to say, I'm not like, yeah, great comments, right? I think the fractal aspect of it and using the Fibonacci sequence is certainly what I still want to. I think there's a ton of value in that. So the top ranked individuals do follow that Fibonacci. It's just the bottom ranked cluster. And to your point, what do they get, right? It needs to be enough to bother showing up, but it needs to be low enough that there's an incentive to want to work harder to move your way up to being one of the top ranked individuals. I think it's just that these meetings in my mind are going to be more about bringing people together. Like, I think it's a lot of what you had, we've had this discussion before, Dan, I think, about when we want these meetings to be like fun and like bringing people together and a nice collaboration and a nice experience, right? Like that in the end, I think is one of the biggest intentions of these weekly meetings, is to like have a cohesive community experience and to meet new people in the community, because you're randomized into new groups every time. And I think that intention is taken away from when you start to rank each other first to worst, and you actually have to like decide on who is the worst ranked person. Like, I just think there's a stigma there that takes away from that otherwise pleasant intention. And if you instead just clump the bottom ones together, then you don't really stigmatize and point out one person for being the least contributing member of the group. That's really what I'm trying to get away from. And so, yeah, how the points break down for that bottom cluster is a great question. that I have not yet. I'm curious. I want like feedback. I'm curious what others think.
Well, the real key in that is that we don't know. So the real trick is, how do we do a test? And that's what I'm trying to do for my dissertation is, what is the length? What do we try? What do we want? Like I'm working on motivation. Does consensus-based appreciation points have a significant impact on increasing motivation at this particular organization? Because you can't automatically say if it works here, it works everywhere. So the real key is, how would you do a group and do one with and one other and see if it gets more of the, you can try it, but how do you know whether it works or not?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, definition of success in this case is going to be challenging. I think in the end, the fractally meetings themselves serve a particular function, and it's just really to rank beyond the growing the community aspect, which is a huge function in and of itself. But the more actual tangible output is when you earn these tokens, they then are used to rank the entire community against itself, to basically create a distribution from first all the way down to the bottom member. And only there's going to be a cutoff line in that ranking that then enables an individual to join and participate in the,
because one of the members of ART has already expressed that, I don't want to grade people. And the way I've been going about it is saying, well, we're not grading people as much as we're grading what the organization wants. How do we know what's important to an organization? Because if I was grading people, and how come we get different grades all the time? I mean, last time we went a grade and Dan is consistently the top and I got higher than him for a week. So does that mean I'm better than Dan because they liked what I did that week? Just a little more. And so, but again, we talked about framing. That framing is the part that I'm working on, is how do we even have that discussion? Because people don't feel like, it's like, okay, well, if you're not going to rank things, how do you decide what's important? Are we saying everything is the same importance? We should spend as much time creating a flyer for one event than getting a grant which funds everybody. Are they the same? How do we decide? So that's another thing that I'm investigating, is not just ranking people, but ranking, ideas, ranking art. But when Dan Larimer started the Go Fractal, he was like, well, let's just start with ranking contributions and leave it at that for a while when we first started. So, but this doesn't have to be complicated. You can say, well, let's try this, let's try that. How do you feel? You don't need a detailed research study to, like, I'm going to tell you anything. You just say, how are people feeling? But I'm saying that needs to be part of that change. If we're trying something, that is, how are we going to decide before you do it? How are we going to decide if it's better or worse? Are we just going to ask people? How do we do that? Doesn't have to be complicated, but I think that should be part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and in terms of the ranking people, I think in this, my thinking, like what I'm trying to put forward, is that the weekly meetings is not about who's better or worse. It's about a cumulative score. So you're ranking each other based on what you did the previous 7 days, right? It's not your lifetime contributions. And that's something I actually, when I joined a few of the fractally meetings, I noticed that sometimes people would bring up what they've done for the past 3 weeks. And to me, I didn't agree with that. Like, I don't think you should talk at all about that. If you're only ranking the past 7 days, then that's the focus of the conversation.
So the way I frame this to myself is, what we're saying is we're trying to come up to consensus of what we think is important for the mission we're doing. It's not really about people as much as we're coming to consensus of what we think is valuable. Now, that doesn't mean an individual will go, well, I think this is really valuable for me. Well, that's great. How can we help you with that? This is a supportive group. Is there any way I can help you with your effort? But in terms of reaching where we're trying to go, you know, if we had, you know, points are a community property. It's not an individual. Points are, or tokens or whatever we're using as a measurement is community property. So how are we going to essentially award things that we all think is important? Like, you know, if I had a business and had a bunch of employees and said, everybody do what you want, and you pay people the same, you're not really directing that business toward any one organization. Now,
Right.
that's not to say that there isn't space for people doing their own thing. That's valuable too, because it can turn in. So I like the idea there's points for that. Just like, you know, a lot of companies say 1 day a week or so many hours, work on whatever you want. You know, get your own empowered individuals to test out their own. So, but I'm agree. It may not sound like it, but I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing that what you
Yeah.
say is a significant challenge. I'm just saying, you know, how do we frame what we're doing, and how do we think about that?
Yeah, 100%. That's right. And I think one of the things, so it's interesting when we look at what Dan and that version of running the weekly meetings and earning the respect tokens, it's like, what was the purpose of those tokens? And I think that's where you mentioned something where the tokens belong to the community because they were representative of opinion, essentially, I think was the analogy that was used. And I think, but in the end, I think a lot of people thought that there was going to be a blockchain and these tokens were going to be used to sort of become the initial token distribution of a potential blockchain, and they would have governance, and like there was more loaded implication and call it value associated with those tokens. And that my understanding is like that was a lot of the concern that I think Dan had with continuing with that experiment, because now it is kind of like an ICO and blah blah blah. And what I'm proposing, the tokens that are earned, they're non-transferable tokens. They belong to you. You can't sell them. There's no market value. And the only use case that they have is a mechanism of ranking individuals so that decides who participates in the Eden style election. So the overlap here is those tokens have no value other than a score that ranks you so you can participate in the, call it every 3 month, every 4 month, could be every 6 month Eden elections that is selecting the chief delegates and layer 1 delegates to then have very explicit roles and responsibilities that help to operate the organization for its intended purpose, which could be copy pasted to all sorts of different organizations for all sorts of different purposes. That's where I think this can become a bit of a template that other groups can use to achieve a particular goal and engage their community on these weekly meetings and engage collaboration. This use case that I'm putting forward is governance, and governance as a service that can be used by any of the, now with IBC coming out, the application is any application, any dApp that lives on Wax, Telos, EOS, UX network could potentially leverage this org that we're going to build as a governance tool for their application. And that I think is something that we haven't really seen used yet. This would be kind of like maybe a first.
I think eventually we can pay volunteers. And one thing we can do is, you know, there's a membership fee. And I think if you put in so many volunteering and get so many points, that should reduce your membership fee. That's just one thing we've been talking about.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah,
that's an interesting
idea. The
idea.
goal of saying, paying in terms of the organization perks and benefits, especially with membership. You know, if you're a volunteer, you can either pay money and that keeps the organization running, or you can give time. But if you're paying for somebody's time, do you pay somebody the same amount for every time? You know, I said on a street corner, I said, "Hi, I'm with FA, the association. What's that worth?" As opposed to somebody that writes an article and gets, tons of followers. So, the organization is going to want to pay points for things they benefit, but that's the problem, is how do you judge that? And that's why I like the Fibonacci sequence so much, because it's a whole extra pain point to say, okay, we like what Dan's doing, what's it worth? Oh my God. It's just hard enough to say, oh, I really like what Dan's doing better than Eric's doing. It's a whole thing to say, well, how many points do we give Eric and Dan? I think the fact that those numbers are generated automatically is a big plus.
Yeah, I agree. There's lots to discuss here. So much to discuss. I see Chris unmuted too. Is something else you wanted to add? I was going to start to wrap up this topic because I think there's just so much to discuss. We could talk about this for hours, and it's a really helpful topic to discuss. It's something that needs to be discussed. And I have so many comments that I could share about it. And I have a couple of notes written down here that I was going to add in response to it a bit. But is there anything you wanted to add there, Chris, that Eric was saying before I go?
No, I want to say thank you, Eric, for the feedback. I think you've brought up some interesting points that I'm going to keep in mind. And what would be interesting is some sort of, not just as a topic idea, Dan, for future calls maybe, is to explicitly discuss the fractally process and sort of what do people love and what do people not love? Like, where is there some like obvious rooms for improvement on this process as people seeing it rolled out in organizations? Like, for example, the numbering convention, that's one potential thing that could be changed because it's a bit awkward. How we rank people first to worst versus first to third, and then, or maybe it's first to fourth or whatever. Like, I think that it might be an interesting conversation to get some of the folks who participated in a lot of these meetings to get together and do like a bit of a brainstorming session. I know I selfishly would find it very valuable as I'm trying to create this iterative use case of it, just to get feedback from others before I kind of put out something that is a bit more of a final paper.
Yeah, it sounds great, Chris. Thanks for sharing all that. And I'd love to do an episode of Town Hall or also some other place or Town Hall, wherever, to discuss this. We did discuss it a little bit actually during the Eden Fractal update number 4. Patrick asked some questions to Das, Vlad, and I about pros and cons of where we're at with Eden Fractal so far. So if you haven't checked that out, if anybody hasn't checked that out, I recommend listening to that because that has some answers there. But yeah, I'd be happy if you want to coordinate that for next week or something like that, Chris, for either Town Hall or Healers Twitter Spaces or both or whatever. I'd be happy to discuss that more because there's a lot to discuss. And as I was saying before, designing these processes and talking about all the design decisions, it's really, really important work, I think. A couple other things I'll add too. Well, I mostly just love the fractally process. I think there's a lot that we need to improve, but I think a couple points I wanted to just bounce back towards you, and I do want to keep this short because I know Patrick's here and I think he's got short time, so I want to provide an opportunity for Patrick to provide a update from the chief delegates and can also share a couple other cool things he's working on my screen in a moment. But before giving the stage to Patrick, moving on to the next topic, I just wanted to say something that's really inspiring that I heard from several people on the Fractally team that I think it's a good thing to keep in mind while we're making these decisions is like we're making the decisions from both the game design perspective and how we're technically designing it, and then also how we explain it, like the cultural aspect as well. And both of those can be helpful in different ways. So like you mentioned something before about like the focusing on getting the worst score. And I feel like that's something that can most likely be resolved with just better explaining and putting it in the right kind of framing, better kind of culture. Like maybe it's a game design, a technical thing that can be improved as well. But the root of the word competition is to strive together. And I think of these games as co-opetitions, like basically competitions where we're competing to help each other as much as possible. And Eric made great points about ranking ideas. And yeah, I think that when we're playing like football or tennis or something like that, like we're not focusing on like who's doing worse. We're just focusing on having a fun game, bringing people together, and then the game kind of facilitates it as well. So I'm kind of just picking out one little thing out of like a mountain of different things we could discuss, but that was something I wrote down because I think that is really important in how we communicate these. And perhaps when we have another conversation about this, Chris, in the future, hopefully in the near future, then we can both discuss the best ways to design these systems and also the best ways to explain these systems and frame them for both people in the community and people who are outside of the community, like in the Art Fractal as well. Cool.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
okay, cool. Sounds great. Thanks so much, Chris, for sharing all these insights. I'm really looking forward to exploring this more, and I'm stoked about what you're doing. I see CAC put an image in there, so I'll check that in a moment. I see Andrew joined as well too. Andrew Ware, welcome. Oh, he's joining right now, so he can't hear us yet. But while Andrew's joining, I think now, unless anybody has any final comments that you want to throw in before we move on, I think now would be a good time to pass on to Patrick. First off, I'll just share my screen too if Patrick's getting ready, but I'll pass on to you in a moment. I mentioned before we have the article for the brainstorming sessions at edencreators.com/brainstorming. So you can check out there. Also work in development, but that's where you can see previous brainstorming sessions. You can also see the tweet that Patrick did with a swarm for the Eden Fractal brainstorming session 4 that I talked about. And these are kind of things that we're talking about related to what Chris was saying about how we can improve the process. So I think at the base, it's a great process, amazing way, but so many ways we can improve it. One of the ways we are improving it now is with sociocratic guidelines proposed by Gabriel, and we've been using them in the brainstorming sessions as well. So that's been helpful to discuss, as well as the MSOE arrangement. And also, Patrick, I think now would be a good time if you'd like to share some updates from the chief delegates. I have your mind map up here, and I see you did a new interview with Joshua this week that I really enjoyed. It was super insightful hearing from Josh, so I recommend everybody checking that out. If you haven't seen that already, in addition to the ones from Nathan and Patrick with Stefan, so really great stuff there. And then there's also the video. I'll move that video right now, but I'll keep it on here. Also welcome Andrew as well. Thank you for joining. If you'd like to share any thoughts, would love to hear from you, Andrew. And thank you so much for everything you do in the community. Patrick, would you like to share some thoughts, or Andrew, would you like to say hello?
I'll just say howdy. How's it going?
Going good, Andrew. You joined a bit late, by the way. We've been going for
Yes, I'm well aware of it, but I just want to fly on the wall here.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us on the wall. I'll publish the full video this week so you can catch up and see all the cool stuff we've been talking about. Lots of topics I think you'd be interested in as well, Andrew. So we started talking quite a bit about the art fractal and the work that Eric has been doing. And I think that relates quite a lot to what I've heard you talking about with the kind of local musicians cooperative and the Barn podcast and all the cool stuff you're doing with musicians and cooperatives. So I think it'll be an interesting topic for you. And at some point, maybe a bit now or at some point in the future, it'd be great to talk with you more in detail about how we can use these Eden processes and fractal processes to help empower musicians and musical communities and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. I missed that yesterday. Sorry about that, Eric.
No problem. I missed it too, but I'm looking forward to the next one next Saturday.
Looking forward to you at the next one.
Yeah, I hope I can make it. Fingers crossed.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, I hope you can make it too, Andrew. That is on every Saturday at 16 UTC, I believe, or actually 17 UTC. So I encourage everybody to join. I'll be there as much as I can, hopefully every week for a long time. And now, if there's no further comments, I think it'd be good to pass it on to Patrick. I see, Patrick, you shared a comment in the chat. Can you share the screen? Yeah, sure, I can share the screen. Would you like me to share the mind map that I just shared again? Or you sent me a video as well. Is there anything in particular you'd like me to share?
The best morning routine for manifesting more.
Patrick, you're unmuted now, but we do not hear you.
Yeah, hello guys. So if you can just share the screen again, then.
Sure. Thank you, Patrick, for joining once again, as always, and sharing an update. And the screen should be shared. You should be able to see the mind map now, and let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like me to focus on.
Okay, so if you want to go in every branch of this mind map, we have for 2 hours, because that's the mind map since the beginning of Eden Onios, May 2021, when I met Chris, when I met Joshua, when I met Brandon. By the way, all these guys coming onto the scene in May 2021 suddenly. So I was meeting them, and I have begun to create this mind map since the very beginning with the interview of every CDs. That's totalized, I don't know how many hours of work, but I don't count. I have been never paid, so that's doesn't matter. So here on the right, you have the current things that we are focused on. That's the CD interview. For the moment, there are no interview of Joseph. Joseph will maybe accept to do an interview later on. That's not the priority. And if you click the mind map that is on the top right, That's the novelty. If you click here on this mind map, on this image,
Yes, I'm
So-
clicking. It's just taking a little while to load right now.
okay, perfect. That's the CD mind map of term 5 that was never made before. There was never a mind map during the term of any CDs. Now, us, the CDs, we do the notes into this mind map. We archive the meeting notes. We archive the videos that are on YouTube. There are two videos for the moment. We have 2 meetings. We have had 2 meetings for the moment. And there is also the IPFS hash, because just after the video is made on Telegram, that's also something new. I sent to Xavier Fernandez, he do the IPFS hash, and we can have the original video in IPFS without any edit on my side, any music, any timestamping. And the video 2 and video 1, there are with timestamping, because I do always the video with timestamping. That give a lot of work to do so. When we do the CD meetings at 19 UTC on the Thursday, I do 1 hour after the video is already made, or 2 hours after the video is already made, because I work like a dog. I do this video very, very time-stamped, as you see. Okay. In order that the people can go directly on the subject, and to reduce the Rashomon effect, and to say that something was never said, or we have never said that. Just to be clear where we are now with the CD, the things we are doing, the things bottom up. We are not knowing what is hidden on EOS at the moment. We press the reset button and we begin by the why. That was never made really since term 1. So now we are at term 5. That's the moment to think about why we are into hidden on EOS and why are we into this before to go outside and try to outreach. We don't use the Twitter, Telegram that we have the credential for the moment. We don't use, because we don't know what we want to share outside. So we share inside for the moment, and we are working on the process. So little news, Luca Persic is developing now into the upvote bot functionality, a function, in order that when a election is finished, you have 2 weeks to send the video into your IPFS. And the people were stuck at this time because they were not knowing that they have 2 weeks. That was not written somewhere on the website. There was no reminder. There was nothing. The limit size for the file, it's 200 megabytes. That's normal. That's the limit between the IPFS and the UI. And what is between the UI and the IPFS? It's the Genesis hidden smart contract. And the Genesis hidden smart contract make a limit of 200 megabytes for the IPFS videos. So the people have to go on a website online and compress the video to be under 200 megabytes. That's better. But then you have to know when it is the time to publish. So now into the upvote bot, there will be a 24-hour or 48-hour reminder to the people that were into the breakout room and that have not sent the video. Let's say if there is someone into the breakout room that has already pushed the video on IPFS, the other will be not, let's say, messaged. But if there is no one into the room that has sent the video to IPFS, there will be messaged. So I have contacted Luca. He will do that. He will receive some fund of my CD fund for that. We have a spreadsheet made by Jesse Jaffe, the CD liaison delegate level 1 liaison with the CDs. That's Jesse. I am in contact with him through him. And we have a spreadsheet. We work on it to improve all those little things that are so obvious for some people, but that are so make a difference at the end. So we have the sober-bound token, the Sibyl protection line 7 and 8, row 7 and 8. That's project lead Xavier and Jesse. Validation I am in. Basically, I am on every validation, seems to be, but because I want to be involved into this validation. I am also doing the line 16 and 17. That's about the bylaws. I do that in collaboration with Xavier and Nathan James for the technical part. There will be also Sashit coming into the loop because he has good ideas. On the last episode, we have spoke about to make some containerization of the bylaws, or let's say some chunks of article, and to be able to make on chain, because the bylaws have to be on chain. That's the first time. So we focus on the processes. However, that we don't know yet the why, we can already work on some processes that in the absolute should be worked, and what should be appearing into the bylaws that will be exactly depending of the why, because depending of the why, every process will be impacted. When you know the why, your processes will have a better perimeter. So we are working on that. NSGM is coming back for this Thursday at 19 UTC. I have a meeting with him in private tomorrow. I have had meeting also with other CD in private. We are discussing between us. And on the Thursday now, we will invite not only the delegate level 1, that was my goal. If you see my video as chief delegate and interviewed by Stéphane Bisson, asking me what are my promise or what I want to do for this Tom 5. I am very committed for the bylaws. I want to see that on chain. The unclaiming funds that are not claimed, I want also to be back to the treasury. We will implement that. The induction script. And also now we want to make sure that we are going bottom up, not only to build the process, but also to hear the voice of the Eden members. And the Eden members are not only the delegate level 1, that's also the other member of the Eden community. So we will have on the next call, Jesse will do an invitation. There will be not only the delegate level 1 that can join us, there will be also the member. He will manage the mute, unmute of the people. Basically, he will do the recording on Telegram, and myself, I continue to do the moderation. I will improve me, and I will follow exactly what I do into Eden Fractal, the brainstorming session. I will respect the phase, clarification phase. Then the second phase, it's about asking the question, let's say, exactly asking the question of the clarification, and then objection if there are objection, and implementation. That's the fourth phase of the sociocracy, but that we cannot do at the moment because that's depend of if we implement something. So at least we can do the 3 phase, and that will be fine. And yeah, we will improve the 1 hour call into Telegram. Everyone that want to ask a question will be unmuted, and there will be a time range for the question, and we hope to have the best engagement possible. Last time there was not really a good engagement. We can say there was not enough people joining, but at least we had an insightful meeting about the bylaws, about what we want to do. So this time will be again focused on the bylaws because we have to brainstorm. Basically, there's a chief delegate meeting are turning a little bit now into some brainstorming to have the chance to think about what we are doing. And I encourage the people to see the video about Simon Sinek, Start with the Why, because that's the video that Nathan James is referencing when he speaks about the why. Start with the why. That's very important. There is a PDF into this one that you can download. And there is a presentation into a second video that I have shared with you, Dan. It's about Simon Sinek explaining into TEDx in 2009 already what he mean about the why. So if you are asking to your friend, why do you are with me? Why do you believe in me? Why do you believe that I am doing good things? Then you can answer to the next question, the what and the how. And the people are not working with you because you are doing fantastic things. They are working with you also because you have a good whyology. You know exactly why you are doing the things. And that's very important to answer to this question. So that's the term 5 for the why. Into Eden Fractal, we have the same question about the mission, the purpose. And by the way, sometimes we have not just one mission, we have multiple missions. So we will define all that together, and there is no one deciding top down. we include the people in. Otherwise, I cannot see me into a window if I am waking up. And this mind map will be always updated for sure. The term 5 CD mind map is always updated week after week. And to have at the end of this term memory of all what we have done. I stop here. I was not long, and that was very, very concrete on what we are doing now. We do any, let's say, speculation on what could be the future. We just improve what has to be improved, and with our funds, with our term 5, 3 months, and that's a continuous experience even on also the CBIL protection that will be continuously made by Jesse Jaffe. He has a good project with that. We had a video together, Jesse, into Antelope Swiss workshop. He was explaining what he's doing with CBIL protection. I don't want to speak here all about the project, but there is a good project basically to make sure that when you want to connect between networks around EOS, we have different networks. You cannot connect with a network if you have not made sure first that the CBIL protection is okay, that the dispute resolution is okay, the project from Chris also. So that's very important, and that's continuous project. The bylaws on chain that will not be made in one day, that's a continuous project. So the priority, as said Lenny on the last episode, CD, the last one, that was to make good bylaws with the voice of the community, together with the former chief delegate also, to make the best bylaws that we can, take in account also what Eden Korea has made, and starting the project to put on chain has to be done, let's say, in parallel. And we don't mix the things. We do the things smart, intelligent. So that's my update about the CD term 5, where we are now. And sure, the brainstorming session, that's more about Eden Fractal, to make sure that we do the best proposal, that we go correctly into the how. And that's on this next Tuesday at 1600 UTC. I say 1600 UTC. That's every 2 weeks. On the Tuesday, we do the brainstorming session. And on the Wednesday, we have the Eden Fractal meeting, and we come with a fresh, upgraded mindset. Voila, that's what I want to share with you guys. Thank you.
Hey, Patrick, just one quick question. Do you know, or do you know, have an update on where you guys stand for the decision on ratifying the last set of bylaws that were proposed?
That's exactly what I stated now. We have to focus now. Yeah, that was exactly what I was stating. We don't know yet if we will accept or not. We are just brainstorming, and there was not Nathan James on the last one. He will come back on this Thursday. I have a meeting with him tomorrow, and we have to make sure also that the people attend to the workshops of the why. There is a topic why. He has asked a new question, by the way, Nathan James, into this topic why of Telegram. And when there will be enough question answered and enough people, we will have workshops with NS James. I encourage the people to attend to those workshops. There is a form to join. That's into the Y channel. And yeah, we will iterate on this on those bylaws. So myself, I have no answer if we will accept or not, how we will proceed. So we just want to make sure that it is in relation with the why, because each process is in relation with the why. That's the pure logic. You don't do processes if you have not answer first to the why, because depending of the why, the answer, all the processes can have some change. But as I said, into the absolute, some processes are needed. You can do that before to know the why. For example, remind the people to put the video on IPFS, that there will be a countdown on the website. I am also joining WAXA about the website edenelections.com to put this mind map, for example, not the mind map that Dan is sharing now, not this one, the other one, the Eden dashboard, the other one, not this one. will be as a resource on edenelection.com. So we have to organize the information. We have to make the things at different level, but some processes are very, let's say, tied to the why. For example, the dispute resolution that are into the bylaw, that's the most complex topics from the bylaw that could make that we don't accept the bylaws. That's the most ambiguous topic. This topic has to make a very clear and digest, and the bylaw have to be very more digest, more clear before to accept them. So we have to make very sure. So we will discuss on that on this Tuesday. And let's move on. We are at our third meeting. I am not the decider of the CDs. I am just in contact with Jesse Jaffe because I am very close with him. We are working since 1 year now, and he decided to go through me as a CD. Shout out to Jesse, thank you very much. But if I was not a CD or not a delegate level 1, I will do exactly what I have stated as always. So you can count on me to be the Batman and to be the guy that will be chased because I will do exactly what I want to do for the good of this ecosystem and don't have too much pressure on the shoulder and make the things right. There is no pressure. That's the 5-unit testing of Eden on EOS. That's the sandboxing. And we are creating beautiful tools like into Eden Fractal. We are going bottom up. So let's do the things right. I think that's the motto of this term. Let's do the things right. And with the raise of the voice of the entire Eden on EOS community. That's that. And
Excellent.
thank you, Chris, for
Awesome. Thanks.
for your project. I love your project, dGov. Thank you. I have read a lot. Thank you, Eric, for all what you do with the universities. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, CIC. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much for sharing that presentation about the why and all the great things that you're doing with the chief delegates and the bylaws and so forth. You said a lot of amazing things there, and a lot of you're doing a lot of really helpful work with the chief delegates. So thank you for all that and coming here to share with us and sharing with everybody who's watching. I think I saw maybe somebody was saying something. I don't know if anybody wanted to respond to what Patrick was saying there. If anybody has any questions or comments for Patrick, then please feel free to share. We have been going for over 2 hours, so I think we should start to wrap it up pretty soon. I have a couple quick windows that I'll share briefly. I'll take about a minute or less to just recap a couple of things that Patrick was talking about there. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions or comments for Patrick? If not, then I'll share it right now. Yeah, I just wanted to show real quick, just to give a bit more color on what we're doing here. I think that you should be able to see the mission of Eden right now. But yeah, I just want to show the YouTube channel where Patrick is posting these, where you can check out Joshua's video and the Eden Fractal updates and the EOSB's updates there. So many cool things that Patrick mentioned there you can watch here. The Eden Elections YouTube channel where you can watch the most recent meetings and the previous meetings. We talked about this in the past. You can go to playlists and check out the 3 meetings that we've had so far. Pamela upvote bot that Luke has been building, which is really cool and really helpful. Really excited about that. And then also Tadas has been building a Telegram bot to help facilitate Fractal meetings too. We tested out for the first time in the Eden Fractal meeting last week. I'm really excited about it. Have been going back and forth with Tadas about some feedback. Also the mission of Eden and the why, great points about Simon Sinek. He also has a great speech about the infinite game as well, which is a fascinating topic that I actually discussed with Reiki during the Eden Town Hall number 28. If anybody hasn't checked that out, we have some great discussions about the why and infinite games and so forth. Also on last week's Town Hall 2, we also had a great conversation with Gabriel about town halls and about Kamatot's collective, Kamatot's haven, which is really cool too. But anyway, there's so much to discuss. I'll end it there. I just wanted to show that briefly and wrap it up. Does anybody have any final questions or comments that we'd like to share, or is everybody ready to wrap it up?
One thing I mentioned in the chat that I just wanted to say out loud in case anyone missed it. I think an aspect of Telegram that is not ideal in terms of the video is that we can't really have chat for the video like we have here. in Zoom and like a bunch of other places. So it might be a good idea to get like a some sort of like maybe just a topic in the main channel for
Totally,
like
totally,
live chat.
Andrew. Totally, Andrew. On the last one, there was some question happening from you into the Telegram. I was seeing at the same time I was moderating, but I was alone a little bit the last time. That was at the last minute organized. I have made the roadmap. I have made all basically, and I have stated that now I will share correctly the things. So Jesse will do the recording. He will do the unmuting of the people. No echo when someone is speaking. You had echo during that I was speaking. That was not so perfect. I have tried to delete that during the editing of YouTube in order that the video is more digest. But if you go directly into the IPFS one, that's a garbage video. So to be very clear here, there will be a place where you can put the question. We will make that sure. If you have not really a topic, at least we take the question that you put into the Telegram. And I will have an eye, a golden eye on that to make sure that we respect the people time. That's why I am very focused and want to do those update 1 hour, not more. Let's pick the people when they join, but the people have to speak on the topic. If they are speaking on another topic of the topic, that's not really the goal. So, but clear, the people will know before to join what is the roadmap, what is the expected exactly topics. Like this, you know already what to expect. But that's about communication and organization between our cities and to make sure that we are not coming at the last minute with the things. At the last minute last week, there was not NS James, or let's say 2 hours before stating I will not come, I have an emergency, and possibly I will have also another CD that will say exactly the same. Oh, NS James is not coming. Okay, I don't come also. Nice, and I will be maybe alone with. We will be maybe only 2 CD. At least we were 3 CDs, but I was the only one on the camera. And well, by the way, we don't have to be always on camera. Like now, I am not on the camera. That's okay. And the things of Telegram, when it is recorded with Telegram, I cannot change my background. So that's my real background. That's my real face of Bastar. And by the way, that's cool because you see exactly the people as they are. And yeah, the quality on Telegram, the video at the end it's good, but it's depend also of your bandwidth. So maybe sometimes not to be on the camera is not a bad thing, I think. And yeah, so there is room for improvement. That will be the 3rd episode, or let's say if we count with the handover, that will be our 4th meeting. But I say meeting 3 on this Thursday because that's the meeting that we do. Oh, and other things. Rive La Rose will join, not maybe on this one, but on another one, as NS James is organizing with Yves La Rose to join us. What are the questions that we want to ask him? Personally, myself, I will not ask too much question to Yves. I will just say what we are doing, because it's all about doing the things. So I will say what we are doing to improve the processes, all those things. And I think we are in a good place with Eden on EOS, because we have also IFA. ENF has given a grant to IFA. And Eden on EOS is evolving into EOS Digital Extended Networks. And that sounds very, very, very good with Antelope, the CB protection, because the CB protection is not just a thing for Eden on EOS. The CB protection is a thing for Antelope networks also. So all is connected. The dGov of Chris also, the dispute resolution process and all those things. Once again, all these processes. So because all these processes, that's depend of the why. So go into the why topic. That's the most important topic. Go into the bylaw topic and into the strategy topic. I will say strategy, it's a broad word that's mean all and nothing. So sometimes that's off topic there. So if you want to speak about the bylaws, go really into the bylaw channel and not into the strategy topic, because that's depend of the why. So we have received some remark of the people that we have too much topics. Joshua was also mentioning that on the last episode. We have received, you have too much topic, but that's not really the fact to have too much topic. That's also the fact that we have topics that are too much broad, like a boat, like a boat. You don't know really what's the focus of the topic. So if the topic is not specific, then you have discussion that are not oriented, that led to people to go in circle and to not be focused. So we have to be focused. That's that.
Yes, and I'll suggest that we focus on that in the Telegram chats. I recommend everybody who's an Eden member to join those member chats, and there's also the topic suggestion chat where we can discuss these in more detail as well. Thank you, Andrew, for the suggestion to have a chat room and for Telegram along with videos. I agree there's things we can improve there, and that would be great. Perhaps we could do it in the meetings channel for now, or perhaps starting another one, kind of like how the EOS Discord has a chat separately during the or used to have a separate chat actually during the fireside chat before they had the feature where it's built in. Perhaps Telegram will do that as well. Do you have any other thoughts you'd like to share in response to that, Andrew? Or shall we wrap it up here?
We can wrap it up. I will just say that is a thing I was thinking about. There are a lot of Telegram topics already. I don't know if we want to make another one, but if there's another, another solution, I'm happy to do that. Just sort of thinking about what we can do to sort of involve the whole sort of all Eden members during those calls without having it be too much.
Absolutely, you can create make a suggestion for a topic, and that will be sorely accepted. A topic named entitled CD meeting chat. And there are the question exactly about the CD meetings, and that will be nice. But more than this topic, that's the people joining, more participation. That was ridiculous. The last one, the participation that we had. You were there, Andrew. That was nice. There was Sashit. There was Chris. Shout out. There was other delegate level 1, but we saw that there was not a lot of participation. So we have to open that to also the Eden members, not only the delegate level 1. And like this, we will see exactly who is interested about Eden-Onios, who has interest to continue into this adventure. That's a big adventure. And voila, that's all.
I think more promotion might help, because I just learned about it at the last second. I feel like more promotion might help with that.
That I said to Joshua is responsible to put the meeting into the pinned message of Telegram. I cannot do all. I moderate, I record, I do workshops, I do already a lot of things. So I let also other CDs to do their things. Otherwise, I am the one-man show. And I don't want to be seen like the dictator into this Eden-Onios Storm 5. Certainly not. I am not this guy. So now I want to collaborate with my CD. So don't worry, we improve. That will be better made. If Joshua was here now, he would say exactly the same. But I am here, and I say with my bad English what I mean. So now I let the mic to Dan. You want to wrap up? You want to close?
Yes, sounds great. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Andrew, for also bringing up that topic. I'm looking forward to improving the organization and the chat workflow in the group. Although, yeah, I do think it's a good idea to wrap it up. I have to get going and do lots of things over here on Earth, and I feel like maybe Andrew wants to get back and do some pull-ups on that bar of his back there, hanging out with his cat. And everybody, I really appreciate you all being here. It was fascinating talking with you, Andrew, about the Art Fractal and Center for Governance and all the amazing things you're doing with universities and nonprofits and so forth. So thank you so much, Eric. Looking forward to discussing these in more detail with you, and also having a discussion with Andrew about how we could synergize these. Chris, very much looking forward to the dGov work that you're doing. Let's see if we can coordinate a discussion about the fractal system and the best way to design it and so forth in the near future. Very much looking forward to collaborating with you there. CAC, thank you so much for joining once again and all the help and all the great work. Looking forward to discussing more about the why and whyology. And thank you so much, Patrick, for sharing the updates about the chief delegate meetings and all the cool things you're doing. I'll wrap it up here. I think maybe we should just end it quick and simple with a 1, 2, 3, go Eden, if everybody's up for that. What do you think, Andrew? You ready to go? 3, 2, 1, go Eden. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it's always tough to do it at the same time since there's a little bit of latency, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's so that you have to raise your hand when you are ready.
Okay,
So
we'll raise our hands.
I raise my hand. Voila, I am ready.
And then maybe with Andrew's audio engineering
Okay,
genius,
and
he
the
can help
drums,
us
the drums.
remove the latency, and we'll add drums later. Yeah, but anyway, 3.
Okay, so 3, 2,
1, 0.
0.
Go
Eden.
All right. Thanks
Go
everybody so
Eden.
much. See you next week and all the great meetings. By the way, the Chief Delegate meetings are on Thursdays, 19 UTC, I think. Thanks everybody so much.
Yeah, baby.
See you next week.
Absolutely.
See you next week.
Bye. See
Bye.
you.